Hey folks, Zac Shaw here from Strategy in Action. You're just joining me on my first ever video episode of Strategy in Action. If you don't know what Strategy in Action is, it's a monthly series where I talk about studying and playing poker. I'm a recreational grinder, that's what I call myself. Kind of like a lot of you guys out there who don't get to play as much poker as they'd like. So actually I only really get to play once a month live. The casino's 2 hours away from my house, etc., etc. So when I do play, it's really important that I win and have fun. And to do that, I study really hard. I study the Red Chip Poker videos and the other content that they put out. And I'm making this series in order to show other people, whether they be recreational grinders like me or more serious players, the kinds of things that I'm studying and using to actually play and win. And that's how things have been going so far. If you go and check out my previous articles, you'll see we worked on things like never limping, never playing people off, taking notes, things like that. And you can see how I use those concepts to actually play better poker and win with specific hands and that sort of thing. And Red Chip asked me to start doing this video so that we could have a little bit more coverage of kind of what's going on. And so I want to tell you about my latest session. And the format is generally we talk about what I studied and then what happened when I went to the casino. This is actually, we're going to talk about two separate issues. The first being bet sizing and the second being tilt. And by saying tilt, you might already know where this is going. But let's talk about bet sizing first. I was really lucky to be able to do my first ever poker strategy coaching session with Doug Hall over at Red Chip, and we spent a good hour and a half going over hands and figuring out what are some of the key things that I can bring into my game to make it better, because that's what this whole thing is about. I have limited time to study, limited time to play. I can't go into a game with a completely different strategy and mindset. It makes sense to add certain skills one by one into the mix as they are necessary. And so when I went back and did the never limp, don't pay people off, those things seem to me to be just absolute fundamentals. And not just to me, but all of the Red Chip coaches kind of agreed that those are some foundational skills that if you don't really have them, then you're kind of asking to lose at the table. And let me just set the record straight. I've been playing poker for 20 years, okay? Home games, online, pre-Black Friday. So I know poker inside and out. But there is never a limit to what you can learn in poker. It just doesn't exist. And every new discovery I make, it's just mind-blowing, because you think, as many poker players do, that you are a good player and you know what you're doing and you know how to play. And then a concept like, don't pay people off, which seems so obvious and simple now, comes up and you realize, wow, I've been losing hundreds of dollars paying people off. I'm going to stop doing that. So enough of the preamble. Doug and I worked on bet sizing, and Doug pointed out something in my game that I have seen in a lot of other people's games, particularly at the 1-2 level, and that is that pre-flop opens are too small. So you see this all the time at 1-2 where I play. You see someone raising to $6, $7, $8 pre-flop, opening, maybe even with limpers behind, and that's just wrong. I mean, nothing in poker is dead wrong. I'm sure there's some weird situation where a sneaky tiny bet pre-flop is strategically a good idea, but in general, it's a good rule of thumb to raise bigger than that, because with your premium hands, you want to get more value. It's a value thing, but also you just want to be able to isolate people and actually have a chance to take down the hand. And especially at 1-2 where it's very passive, you make a $6, $7 bet, and you're going to get 6 callers. I mean, it's just going to be a bad scene. So Doug really nailed home this rule that he uses, a rule of thumb, not a dogmatic rule that must be followed at all times, just like never limp. I mean, if you never limped, then you wouldn't be playing enough hands. So his idea was, and this is something that I think is well known to other poker players, you do something like $12 plus $2 for every limper behind, and that should be your open bet. Or if you're in a game that isn't 1-2, you just say, all right, well, I'm going to raise big and then add a big blind for every limper. And so I did this. I went down to the casino. I saw the flaw in my game. I went and I started raising much bigger, and it really worked. I mean, it makes a bigger pot for when you have those value hands and you can get more value. It's a very passive game that I play, so you're going to have a lot of people even calling off your c-bet when you still have the best hand. And a lot of people are also going to be giving up when they don't hit the flop at all. So definitely the bet sizing pre-flop change is a good thing in my game. However, let me give you some greater context into my session here, which was that I woke up in the morning with a pounding headache. I had a work situation explode, lots of stuff to coordinate on the home front. So already it was just one of those days where I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, not feeling it, really not feeling like, taking that 2-hour drive down to the casino that I got to do and playing poker. But I did anyway, because as many of you can probably appreciate, when you have work and a family and a whole life to coordinate, it's really hard to get away to play poker. I have to schedule it very far ahead of time. I usually do second Saturdays to make it predictable. And so even though I was essentially on life tilt and in a really crappy mood and feeling bad, I decided to go down to the casino and play anyway. Well, that's the lesson that I want to give to you. Don't play. Don't play when you feel that way. And again, this is not new information. You hear this all the time from mental game coaches and poker players in general. If you're not feeling like playing poker, don't play, because chances are you're going to play your C, your D game. And that's what happened. I went down there, and not only was I on tilt already from the headache and just the craziness that I had to take care of before I left, but I get there and, there's just like, it's a mob scene. There's a 15-minute line for the bathroom. There's an hour-long line. I'm not kidding you, like an hour to get food anywhere. It's just, I'd never seen the casino like this. And so, I went from already being on tilt to being on super tilt. And then I just doubled down and I said, well, I'm not going to let this craziness ruin my fun here. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to play poker. I'm going to change my bet sizing. I'm going to win. And, I did win a few pots, and I lost a few pots. And, I would say that it wasn't a session in which I was running particularly good. But the tilt just started to creep in. And the thing was, I thought I wasn't tilting because I thought I was being, determined and stubborn. And, this is a good thing. Like, I'm persevering through the tilt. But that was not the case. So, I got into one of those stupid hands where, I'm raising big with ace-king, pre-flop. I get called, flop comes down, ace, queen, jack, so I got the straight draw and the top pair, top kicker, face a bet, I raise, re-raise, all in, and as I'm shoving that stack out, I just know, I'm like, this is exactly a hand where I would say don't pay people off. I mean, if I wasn't tilting, I would have stopped a moment and said, what can this person possibly have on this board that they're going to be acting so aggressive? Top pair, top kicker isn't good enough here. And I knew that as I pushed that stack out. And that's the crazy thing about tilt, is it just completely takes over your brain. And then you only realize it when you see your money going away from you. And I knew my money was going away from me the second I pushed that all-in stack out. Unless I hit a miracle turn or river, I was going to lose that money. And when I did lose, I wasn't surprised. In fact, as I stood up and walked away from the table, I was processing the situation. I knew I had just, donked off a stack because of tilt, and that there was an important lesson here to be learned. It was an expensive $300 lesson, but there was no reason to be upset. And, I got in my car and I went home, and, it was actually kind of a relief to know, hey, I don't have to play poker when I don't feel like playing poker, You don't want to let those situations ruin the game for you, because they can. I know plenty of recreational players who've just had these tilt moments and they decide, I'm not good at this, or I don't want to play this, or I'm just not feeling it in general, the game. And that's the last thing you want. I'll leave you with one more tip, and that is one of the other reasons why I really wasn't feeling the tilt after losing that session there, was that I had a plan B. Now this is a little bit embarrassing because it is 2016 in April, but I had waited that long to watch the new Star Wars movie, and miraculously I avoided all the spoilers. So that was my plan B. And it had actually been my plan B since I started this strategy and action project. I said, at some point I'm going to lose. Hopefully it's because of variance and not tilt like I just lost. But, at some point it's inevitable. I'm going to lose, and I don't want that to ruin my, time. Let's say I drive out of the casino, third hand I'm in, I push kings and aces and lose a stack, and maybe an hour later I do the same thing. Well, what am I going to do? Drive home all, pissed off? No, I'm going to see Star Wars. And it was a great movie. But that's beside the point. I had a plan B so that if I lost, I would still feel like I had an entertaining time and I had fun and I didn't waste my leisure time, in an expensive pursuit that didn't really get me any, fun points. So, it's a plan B that helps you get out of that tilt situation really quickly. And, that's the most important thing, because there's things that are bigger than poker, and life is bigger than poker. And so you should really be, enjoying your life. And if poker is a part of that, you should be enjoying your poker. And to circle back to the beginning of this, I can't tell you enough how much studying has increased my enjoyment of poker. And I've read books and I've, looked at videos here and there, but this is the first time in my life where I've sat down and said, you know what, we're going to really focus on these techniques and applying them and analyzing the hands afterwards, and then going to the community. The Red Chip Poker Forum is great for that, and saying, here's how I played this hand, what do you think? And it takes a little bit of guts to kind of open your bad plays up to the scrutiny of, top coaches and other really good players. But I can't tell you how much it's improved my game. And besides that, it's just made poker more fun, because I feel like I'm sitting in the catbird seat, I'm calling the shots, I know everything that's going on, and I have a level of understanding that's above other people. And furthermore, other people think they have a level of understanding above me, but they don't, because they're not studying as hard as I am. And I guarantee you that at the upper echelon of poker, you've got people who are studying hard and who are playing hard, and that's where we're headed with strategy in action. So I hope you enjoyed the first video update. There'll be another one next month, and until that time, good luck and run good.